Hey, my name's Ruthie Ann Van Buren, and welcome to this presentation, which is Employer Outcomes Driving Equity in Student Learning. We have Eddie Lynn of NexusEdge is giving our presentation. As you all know, we are having a Zoom meeting, so please keep your microphones on mute unless you're interacting. Mr. Lynn has said that he's fine if you have something to say and you'd like to unmute yourself and chime in, or you can leave questions in the chat and we will look at the chat from time to time. There will be a survey that I'll post later on for you to take about this presentation. I'll put the link in the chat so you can do that. And I think all of your reactions are available. So if you want to thumbs up or raise your hand or anything like that, you're free to do that as well. So without further ado, here's Eddie Lynn.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today, especially on a Friday. I want to provide a little bit background about myself. And as we start jumping into what we're specifically talking about with SLOs, education, making teacher lives easier while providing opportunities for students. And how do we do that at scale? So about me is I'm from Texas, and then I studied engineering because I didn't know what I was doing or what I wanted to do. And then I started guessing randomly on I started checking every box when they're recruiting post-college. So I ended up in New York as my first two jobs. Interesting place, but I wanted to find a way to get out here to California. So I went back to school in LA, and then I lived in the Bay Area for a little bit. So my career was very corporate-y. I worked at an oil company when I was in Texas. I worked at UBS Investment Bank in New York, Goldman Sachs in New York. I worked at Adobe in the Bay Area. And then, when I graduated business school, I had a choice between going back to Adobe and then going on Fear Factor. If you watch that show, they asked me to be on Fear Factor as a contestant. So I immediately thought, okay, well, I would rather be a Fear Factor contestant than go back to that. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They were very good to me. So I was a contestant on Fear Factor. So if you have any questions about that, happy to send the YouTube link on that as well. It's called The Bees Are So Angry. And then after that, they asked me to be a faculty member at Cypress College and Skyline College. So I taught in the business department at Orange County, and I taught in San Francisco for a bit as well. But what we're really here today is to talk about our company, NexusEdge, and how we've implemented statewide throughout the California community college system, and how we work with different employers, and how do we make these opportunities available for students while making it easier for you to report outcomes and just do your jobs in general. Any questions on that so far? All right, cool. So let me share my screen. It's always easiest to tell the stories when you're sharing your screen. So one of the big things is most of us, everyone in the California community college system uses Canvas. Not everyone, I think everyone here is from California, but we have integrations. They all look pretty similar. So you're always trying to figure out, okay, how do we add into our week's modules? What do we include within our curriculum, our syllabus? And as you're busy constructing this, how do we make this easier? So we partner with the CEO of Canvas. So you can see our app in Canvas right here. And then you'll see all the different employers that we work with. Because one of the big themes within workforce within California is that how do we make sure students are learning what the employers are asking for? How do we communicate with all the employers in real time? How do we get the employers to write that curriculum? How does it fit within my course? Does it fit within my course? And that's on one side of it, to make sure we're teaching the students the right stuff and to get them employable at least. And then on the other side of it is, how do we make reporting all of this information much easier? Because it's a lot of work to write all the different outcomes out, and us as instructors, we have a lot of work to do anyway. So how do we make that easier? So this screen right here, we partner with NexusEdge. We partner with employers like Google, as you can see right here, Google, Techstars for all you entrepreneur-minded folk out there, and then Shopify. So Shopify is another employer partner of ours, and then Citigroup is another partner of ours. William Blair's investment bank in Chicago, that's another partner of ours. And I'll just give an example of one. My favorite one is the G Suite guy. So you click on this, and this content was produced by Google. So there's an authenticity there, rather than say a textbook and say, well, who wrote this? Does this really mean our students are going to get employed? But when Google wants you to learn something, that this is what Google expects. So let's watch the G Suite guy.
The Google G Suite is a set of cloud-based apps that can be used to create documents, spreadsheets, presentations, and more. Earning your G Suite certification demonstrates your ability to use digital skills.
So spreadsheets, I've always used spreadsheets throughout my life. We look at this and we say, okay, well, do all of these spreadsheets fit within what my CIS course, my business course, my really anything course, because spreadsheets are so broad. I've seen it used in so many different courses. And you can see like an example is working on a t-shirt
In this
business.
video, you will complete the data tables in your new sheets with functions. Functions are preset formulas used to make calculations in Google Sheets. Instead of manually...
My theory is this guy wanted to be an actor, and this is the best gig he could get, is the Google G Suite guy. But nonetheless, I appreciate his effort. So let's just say the Google G Suite guy is someone we want to include within our courses. So we just hit add, and then we pick what module, which is what week in our course we want the G Suite guy assignment to appear in. So we hit continue. And then one of the biggest challenges that I found as an instructor was writing curriculum from absolute scratch was incredibly like, it just takes time. Writing a quiz from scratch takes time. And then how are we going to spend all this time getting in sync with employers to know that this is what they're looking for? And how do we make sure we have this pathway to students from the classroom? So it's all right here. So now this is automatically populated within Canvas. And that way you can see everything that the G Suite guy wants you to learn. And then all you have to do now is hit publish. So once it's already published in Canvas, all your students can see this. They watch all the videos. And something as important is taking the quiz. So having a quiz, as you know, makes it a lot easier to see if your students are actually doing stuff, and you have to grade them, right? So having this as an assessment at the end of each one holds them accountable. So the good thing is that the quizzes are built into Canvas from Google. So that way, it makes it easier because the students can't say, oh, I didn't get my login for this other system or whatever. They use Canvas or their learning management system every day, or they're failing your class just because how else are they going to get graded? And the good thing is after they complete this, one of the things that I had challenges with when I was teaching was I had Scantrons, believe it or not, and that was interesting. And I had to manually type the grades of each Scantron into the grade book within Canvas, which also takes time. And I was like, I'm here to teach. I don't want to sit here and like punch numbers in. There's too many numbers to punch in. So one of those pain points was solved by having the grades from each quiz automatically flow into the Canvas gradebook. And I think there's a lot of traffic in Canvas right now. But when this gradebook shows up, you'll see that the student grades automatically show up. So that way you can spend your time working on instruction and not necessarily, here's a gradebook. You can spend your time teaching. So you don't have to spend your time typing in numbers. So you can see how all that works as well. And then your students also get credentials at the same time. So they get digital credentials from some employers. When they pass each exam, they get a digital credential. You can email it to yourself if you feel like it, or you can click one button and it gets automatically added to your LinkedIn profile if they have an account. And also something important that I really want to emphasize is what do they get from the employer? So if you're not familiar with Shopify, it's one of the largest e-commerce type companies in the world. So it's basically helping people small businesses, they don't have to code to build a website and take transactions automatically through this website. They've helped 1 million businesses in 175 countries sell over $200 billion of products throughout on their platforms for small business owners. So students, if you go to pricing, this is normally like $360 a year if they were to buy every month. But now, because they're students, they get a free Shopify account. And at the same time, every employer that we work with also gives them other benefits. Some employers give automatic interviews. And one I just gave a presentation about this morning is with Citi Ventures. This is ordinarily very competitive to get internships at Citi Ventures. As you can see, they typically recruit at Berkeley, Columbia, MIT, UPenn, all that kind of stuff. So, but we partner with them. So we work with them on making this program available to community college students as well. So students who pass their exams in Canvas. So instructors assign those exams I showed you, like the Google one, except they're made by Citi, in Canvas. Students complete those as part of their homework. And if they pass them, they can be interviewed automatically. And then if they do all the interviews, they get selected for the Cupid program, where they come into groups of 4 to 6 to work on a real Citi business challenge. These business challenges include everything from, does blockchain mess up Citi's credit card business and mess up their commercial banking business? So they're really addressing real Citi problems, which really gives them that exposure to both learn what's going on within industry, as well as something they can put on their resume. And their events is, they have these events in person, or used to, where their CEO would show up and then look at the presentations of the students. People often think of Citi as a financial services firm because it is, but look, there's engineering roles for the creatives out there. They have to draw and design things like what it looks like on Citi.com, all the other products, public policy positions. So really, there's a variety of roles out there for students as well, and they have a lot of interaction, such as hackathons and other projects that they can work on the way. So now students can get a direct pathway to a leading global financial services firm directly in Canvas, and you don't have to grade anything. You still have the freedom to construct the course in the way you want, and you can just print out, we can print out all the SLOs for you, because as you can see, the student learning outcomes are, we know whatever credentials you assign to each course. So then we can just print out the list of skills learned for each credential, what badges that they've earned, and what do they get from each one. So now everything can be done in clicks, so you can focus on teaching and not grading or writing up more paperwork. So before I dive into other stuff, questions, any questions on that? No questions so far? Yeah, I really want to get a sense of the biggest priorities really among students. So, really, it's just about providing pathways from students to get students to their different career paths at leading employers, while making faculty lives easier. So, if you could type in the chat, what do you teach? I can come up with examples of what credentials fit within your course. For example, William Blair is an investment bank in Chicago. All of their stuff is not related to financial services. It's related to soft skills. So the deck that they provided, health education, great. So what they've provided is on soft skills for like what they provide here. I'll go into William Blair's stuff. So what they've done here, and I'll show my screen back in a second, is that they're thinking, and this is universal. So I'm glad you brought up health education and business, because this is one of those we've seen in both of those classes. So you'll see in retail and hospitality, you'll see things like business etiquette, business communication. So you can click on view and say, is this for me? This is for my students, this is my class. You'll see like this is literally the slide deck they provide to new hires in their orientation program. So they can really talk about, okay, this is their approach to communication, transparency, how you grow your career, customer service skills, how to build relationships, what is your meeting etiquette. So you'll learn all along the way. Your students will learn, even though it's within the context of a bank and that's their business. So it'd be great, directly transferable business education. We've seen healthcare, this being used in a healthcare instructor as well. In fact, there was a nursing faculty at a community college near Fresno where they used the Google Sheets one that we went over first for their nursing program. So it just to me showed that I was surprised to say, hey, you know what, across all industries, we do need to use spreadsheets, and a lot of these do have health applications. And this one, even though you would think because it comes from a finance firm that it's got to be a business, but it is very helpful for business in terms of creating their career growth and development. But this framework can really help them regardless of what career path that they're in. So that way, we want to make sure that we help instructors identify when we work with instructors on saying which credentials could fit within their course, based on what they're looking at, what they like to teach within their syllabus. So there's a lot of combinations out there, whether it be entrepreneurship, whether it be just customer service, understanding your customers. There's one called EQ for entrepreneurs, which is really focusing on teaching empathy across their business interactions. But empathy is a universal type emotion. I think it'll make you a better healthcare professional, or just better professional in general, by having great empathy for your peers and understanding others' perspectives as well. So even though that comes out of an entrepreneurship credential, it's a universal skill set. So thank you for asking both of that. But health education in terms of hospitals, specifically on that, there are some hospitals in LA that hopefully reach out to Cedars, and hopefully they'll have, we're always adding employer partners. So we'll see what happens with Cedars, but maybe they'll be able to add some curriculum there as well. So we're always reaching out there. And in terms of business, there's specific courses they were thinking of, because there's stuff that we've used on digital marketing, a lot of financial service stuff. There's accounting stuff coming up too. The entrepreneurship credentials are very popular as well. So if you want to dig into that as well, I'm happy to go into those details as well. But any other sectors that you want to learn more about, how this could apply to your specific courses and what fields of education at the same time? Any other questions on what I've covered so far?
No, doesn't seem to have any. They seem to be really focused on what you're saying.
Okay, well, I mean, that's, I mean, there's not a lot more for me. Usually I leave it open a lot to questions, just running through that process. But I mean, I guess I could get to know before we all jumped on, it was really, I felt like you mentioned it was really important to really understand that what is most tangible and what could we take away immediately within our classrooms. And based on the theme of this conference, and at the same time, because a lot of, I mean, we're all focused here on how we can both benefit the students, right? So you think about, okay, will these provide direct interviews from the classroom? This is the shortest route possible from our classroom to that employer. And you have that for your students, but at the same time, reducing the amount of work you have to when you start your SLOs. So that way, at the same time, you are focusing on both prioritizing student success, while at the same time reducing the workload necessary, and also fulfilling commitments for being as precise as possible with SLOs. And also the SLOs be very consistent with what the employers are looking for, because in this case, the Citibank is putting down their requirements for what they're looking for in students, and that automatically translates into SLOs that we could generate for you as well. Any other questions on that? I mean, that's pretty much it from me. That could run real quick. So, I mean, unless there's anything else, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got for this. Ruth, thank you.
Okay, well, I presume we can end early if you've finished your presentation and there's no questions. I'm going to put the survey in the chat, though, if everyone can take a minute and complete the survey for this hour before we go away. But if anybody doesn't have any questions, then we can let everybody go a little early, I guess. Can we get a copy of the video? Andrew Robinson is asking. Where did you get that video from, maybe?
I guess this is being recorded, so you'll get
it. That's true. There is a, what'll happen most likely is they'll put these recordings out. Yeah, we're recording the session, Mr. Robinson. So is that what you're looking for?
Oh, yeah. I was looking to see if I can get a copy of the recording, because later on I'll have more questions. It was a lot. That was a lot of information for me. So I got to kind of break some things down, and then I can ask some questions, send them out to Mr. Lynn, probably through email, because this is this is very informative. I think, moving forward and, dealing with employers, I think that's a big thing within our community college system. So,
Yeah, what college are you teaching at?
I'm at Imperial Valley College.
Imperial Valley College. What's interesting is I think if you're in California, which I mean, yeah, it's already paid for, so it can be very easy for you to implement with your classroom right away, actually. So just shoot me an email, and then next thing you know, you'll have it active within Canvas, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, and I know we're looking at our campus. There have been some lectures on work-based learning. So that's a huge thing within the community college district that they're trying to push now. So this is pretty good.
Thank you. And yeah, I know it's a lot of information too. In fact, a lot of folks have told me to slow down when I speak about these things. And I apologize for that. I get that a lot too. So I probably should have slowed down a little bit also, but I know it's a lot. Get that a lot because that is a lot of concepts put together and a lot of different ways, very, and it's a new thing, so a lot of times it's going over a lot of things quickly that people aren't as familiar with. So I'm definitely always setting up follow-up calls as well. Particularly, if this is something you want to get going with your students and it's already paid for you guys, might as well. So I put my email in the chat, and that way you can just reach out to me anytime and say, how do we get this in my classroom? Usually a 90-second process. Not everybody realizes that adding an app to Canvas is actually not that different than how we add apps to our phone. So Canvas has like an ecosystem, all kinds of apps you can add, and you have an administrator who can automatically just search for our app, and I give them instructions. They can install it in about the video for installation about 90 seconds. So within 90 seconds, your whole department can just have access. It just shows up within your courses within Canvas. So you can just, it'll be easy to get your whole department on. It'll just show up in Canvas. Nobody has to do anything special or different except IT. And then you're off and good to go.
And it's something we can just obviously just create a separate course shell for it, and they can just pull from that course shell and put what they need to into the course.
Yeah, let me share my screen again, because this is the part where they say I run through things way too quickly. So let's just do that again. So if we're in Canvas right now, I mean, usually what people do is you add it. Well, you could create your own another course shell or anything. That's fine. But you can always add it to your existing courses right now. So let's say you want to save. Yeah, perfect. So you want to save your students money on books. We've done that too because books are kind of expensive, especially these days. And so instead of that, you just, so let's just say I want to add a week to this. Let me close this out. So let's just say I'm going to add week 7. Let's do week 7 here. And then, it's blank for week 7. So then we're like, okay, well, for week 7, let's go to NexusEdge. Week 7, I don't know. What do you teach? We'll pick something for week 7.
Health education.
Health education. So my G Suite guy, my favorite.
Or you can go to public health, either one.
Yeah, I like, spreadsheet stuff. That's the one of this list. I mean, there's not really super specific health stuff other than what I've seen the health instructors do in Fresno. In that area, they've done that. And then you just choose whatever one that fits that particular week, or you can start in a new shell, like you were saying. And then once you hit OK, then that's when this automatically gets created for that week. So we'll wait till it gets loaded up for this particular assignment. So I know I skipped that part too quickly. My apologies. So it's save and publish. And then you go back to our modules and you see that in week 7, the G Suite guy has returned week 7. So he's there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's just to make creating weekly modules a lot easier. And hopefully, I mean, we reach out to Cedars-Sinai. Hopefully they'll have some more health specific stuff posted soon, but we're always adding stuff into it. There's some coding stuff too. We're just trying to get as many as possible from global trade. Easiest ones, for whatever reason, are just the business folks, companies have the most content. We have another question. Oh, sorry, you had a question?
Yes.
Hmm?
Oh, no, from Regina. I was going to read Regina's question. She said she's checking her Canvas app and it's not there. Also, a search for Nexus came up empty. She teaches at Victor Valley College.
Yeah, perfect. I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so what happens is your Canvas IT administrator has got they just have to follow this 90-second video I'll send them. And your person is Lisa Kiplinger Kennedy, who is paid for this. And I assume you know her. Or, yeah. So she's got you covered. So you're good there. So you could email Lisa and copy me too and just ask for next steps. But it's really just whoever your Canvas IT person is, I can send them this video. So yeah, perfect. Yeah, just copy Lisa and she'll know. She likes to know what's going on.
I'll send an email and I'll copy you on it.
Perfect. Oh, that's so cool. See, I'm glad that's why we do these things.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you. And then Waleed's got a question on a direct message. Noticing more community college students have already completed a bachelor's degree, although are unemployed. Yes. Do you think employers are more concerned about applicants coming with specific skills rather than investing in teaching the skill set required to the applicant? Yeah, that's kind of I feel like in general, there's a disconnect between employer expectations and what are they responsible for instruction relative to what are the schools responsible for. And I think we're at a state within the education industry where they're trying to resolve that issue. So an example that kind of addresses to your point is their upskilling is a really big thing within community colleges now. You have a lot of people returning from the workforce. There's a lot of, you see as the technology evolves, there's a lot of positions that used to exist that don't exist anymore. Or because the state of our economy, things like positions are getting cut, even if they're just fantastic employees. So we actually had a student with an MBA with many years of work experience come back to Pierce College and has actually started completing the Citi questions as well, that Citi program that I outlined before. So to answer your question, yes, that's definitely happened. So we had someone with a master's degree, unemployed, go back to Pierce College to upskill. And employers are concerned about applicants coming through the specific skill sets they would love. So for them, if you think about their perspective, although they do have really committed to training, candidates are more competitive with the more relevant experience that they do have. So they'll just naturally gravitate towards candidates who already have the exact skills that they want. And that's not really fair to people who are coming back into the workforce or reentry students. Citi is totally okay with reentry students as well. As part of that came up during our last webinar. And so we're trying to get the students, helping do the work of helping the students prepare for those employers so that the employers don't have to do the work, that they can compete even if they're still upskilling these new skills for the first time. That definitely, I would say employers would prefer candidates with specific skill sets already done. And I guess their investment to do it is to work with us on helping bring that as a statewide project. So the Citi project is already paid for throughout the entire state of California. And this is where the challenge is that I kind of mentioned earlier, is that while Citi is really dedicated to is very passionate about how they make their positions and education for their positions available to the entire California community college system, even with a large team of 10 people, and that's very large for divisions that they have in that area. How are they going to reach 2.1 million students? And then we got to reach the rest of the country. So they're going to need some help. So it's not that they don't want to upskill. It's like, how can they do this? And so you have the challenge on the employer side saying, okay, how do we train these 2.1 California community college students? But then on the other side, when you talk to the colleges, they say, okay, well, how are we going to make sure all our instructors are teaching what the employers are looking for? Like, who are you going to ask? And you can't have like 3,000 faculty asking the 10 people at Citigroup who've already answered the question for 3,000 other faculty, right? So there needs to be a intermediate party in between that helps resolve all of that. And that's kind of where we've seen ourselves as an actual company. It says, we're going to help Citi take all the skill sets that they want to see in their new employees, and we're going to make sure that those candidates coming to them have those skills. It doesn't matter if they have a bachelor's, master's, or they're recent high school grads, because we have all of those at our colleges, in our California community colleges. So they're learning all those skills and they're reducing bias in hiring. And I do want to show one of the projects that did come out of it that I was really impressed with, that one of the students did. And something I forgot to mention also is that we're reducing bias in hiring, because what happened is that these students here, the city, when they get the candidates from us, they don't know that these candidates, they don't know the age, race, gender, income of these candidates. They have no idea. I don't tell them. So it's very easy to reduce bias in hiring. We just don't provide the information. You just show them the right skill sets. So this is interesting. So one of his free response question, if you just left off his name, then I would definitely have no idea about who this is, but he chose to include it. So one of the prompts was, how do you think COVID is going to impact the economy? And this is something, of course, Citi would be very interested in learning more about and seeing research projects. So his student here said, okay, well, this is his deck. And this is what he talks about, what COVID is, and it's health related and business related at the same time. But then he talks about how COVID affected different areas of Citi's business, interest rates, for example. How does this affect our national debt? Because we already had a large national debt jump. And now how do we address the pandemic? And how does that, in fact, that'll cost money too. Unemployment, unprecedented levels of unemployment. So he talks about these in a good amount of detail, talks about the 2008 financial crisis, and that impacts interest rates then and now. He talks about our debt, how it impacts things now. So he sets the stage on this, and he talks about unemployment as well. But then what I really like is he wraps this all up in a solution, and he really addresses these societal issues, like how do we more efficiently redistribute wealth? Because there is a massive wealth gap in this country. It's pretty obvious right now. And he's coming up with the solution how to do this, restructuring the debt in our country, and then vaccinations, on how vaccinations actually impact economic success. So I'm glad he himself actually included this in a presentation about the economy, because that to him was a very important consideration. I think that is also something that needs to be brought out as well. My favorite slide is that he included a slide that provides a lot of inspiration and unity to us all. You see flags from all over the world sitting on the right-hand side, but he capitalized resilience, determination, and ingenuity. And that's what I like about this particular student. And the great thing is, I don't know, I think he recently graduated high school, but he could be a bachelor's degree, or he could be one of the students with MBA. I don't know. And that's kind of the whole point, is that he's learning what they want, and they're evaluating him on what he can do and not what degree that he has. And I think that's the right way to do things going forward, because if they can do the job, they should get the job. And that's kind of the ecosystem that we're building out with both ourselves and the employers and throughout the California system, and hopefully the rest of the nation soon. That answer Waleed's question, and that inspire anyone else to have any other questions? Yeah, thanks. And
Yeah.
just that, and that thought with Waleed also was that, yes, employers are more concerned about applicants already coming with that skill set. I think that's just the reality in which employers are these days, because with so many applicants and it being so competitive, I can see why they would just choose the person who already has the skill sets for that role. And that is not, in the current state of our educational system, that's not quite fair. Because so that's how we've decided to democratize access to those skills, is we ask them what they want, and now you can have it within your classroom. So you're right. I think that's a problem, and this is how we've been choosing to solve it. Anybody else?
I don't have any in the chat. Do you have any? Does anybody have any questions you'd like to unmute and ask?
Well, you have my email address, so feel free to, feel free to email me at any time. Look forward to seeing the email from Regina, copy Lisa on it, and we can get you going as well.
I do have one quick question.
Great.
In regards to the technology behind it, because you're in a larger, more or less like a metropolitan type city. So when it comes to the technology, is that important for the connection with the relationship with these businesses? Because they kind of have it seems like it's someone have a tech kind of background to them.
Yeah, I would say in some ways. So some of the partially. So as employers in general, they should start adopting technology in a greater scale. But I think part of how everything that they wanted to know, we put it within Canvas. So for example, there's one from Google called Introduction to Machine Learning, which I think would scare a lot of students and faculty too. It's like when I first even heard the topic, I would think Terminator 2 and got to program some robots to do some crazy things and think for themselves. But once you start digging into that module within Canvas, it's just a spreadsheet. You don't have to set up any complex environments or any crazy technology for it. They're teaching the foundations of machine learning, just using some basic spreadsheet math. So that way your students can get a feel for it. Instructors are probably new to it too, as I was. You get a feel for it while at the same time putting it away in a somewhat familiar environment. And I would say that it's interesting. I think, you hear this a lot between metropolitan areas and areas that are not necessarily in a major metropolis or something. And that's why I like to speak to the colleges that we worked with. They're all over the state of California, everywhere. So I think right now it's almost at 40 community colleges right now. And they're from all over the state. In fact, State Center Community College District from that's like around Fresno, basically. And they have students all over the place as well who start completing these credentials. And the great thing about interning for Citi is that team that's leading all this is in New York and San Francisco, but because of COVID, it doesn't matter anymore, right? Everything is done. All the internships are done online anyway, because nobody can really go anywhere. So it's actually really, it doesn't matter where you are anymore. You can learn everything they want. And you can do everything they need from wherever you are.
No, awesome. That's awesome. No, thank you. I appreciate that. This is something I'm.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
All right, no problem.
Waleed's got one. He says, "Do companies value international internships differently?" I think it's less about where you did it so much. It can play a role, because we encounter this as well too, where you can start getting into it's a full-time candidate, then it could be a visa issue, right? So I'm assuming let's not talk about visas as a potential issue. International, if there are some people I've come across that work at, let's say, the Citigroup division in Singapore or whatever, right? Then it's kind of all the same. If it's something they're familiar with, it doesn't matter as much. I would say it's still valuable. In fact, it might even be helpful, because you can see that Citi is a global firm, right? And the person who did the presentation this morning about this, she's responsible for London, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Singapore, and Japan. So one person sitting in New York, responsible for all of that stuff globally. So having an international internship while being in the US actually provides you a really interesting perspective, because then not only are you able to relate to your colleagues on the other side of the world, but you're also here in the US where you can also interact and you understand your folks out here too. So I would say in today's global economy, I would actually see it as a positive that you have an international internship. Although I can see for some employers that they would want you to have something domestic as well. But if it's something familiar to them, you have the right skill sets. I think if you market your skill sets appropriately to align with that employer, then it's going to be just fine. I think it's really just about communication and being able to convey that what you learned at a particular company overseas gives you the ability to do jobs here in the US as well. And for multinational firms, I think they're very accustomed to that.
The reason I asked that is because the location of our college is in a rural area of Imperial County. But less than 15 miles away is a major metropolitan city of Mexicali, Mexico, which has approximately about 2 million inhabitants. and large factories such as Caterpillar, Samsung, etc. So I mentioned to many students, if they're interested, maybe looking at interning opportunities in Mexicali, Mexico, which to me would seem like getting into a Fortune 500 company, Caterpillar, Samsung. Even if they interned, that would add to their skill set. But what's your opinion on that?
Oh, 100%. That's great. Yeah, if they can get an opportunity with Caterpillar, shortly nearby, I definitely would do it. I mean, it's a great multinational firm, and same with Samsung and all that. In fact, because you mentioned that, I wanted to share my screen just so you can really see. This is who's running. She's now senior vice president at Citi, who's running this initiative I'm talking about right now. But look at where she got her first Citi experience from, Mexico. So, like, this is where her first Citi experience was at. So, I mean, if anything, and I know during the pandemic, she waited out the beginning of last year in Mexico also, where she was working remotely from there too. So I think they would actually be very excited by that, because that's where she used to work. So I think anybody, actually for any firm, I would highly encourage them to take a position that gets some experience in that field. And the reason why also is because they build habits that you learn within those companies. It's like, not everybody will do something the way Caterpillar does it, but Caterpillar was able to succeed in their market because they have different best practices. And that way they know, say another company sees that, hey, you worked at Caterpillar, then you know how they do things at Caterpillar. Maybe that company does something a little different, but they know that you at least have been taught in a way that makes you can succeed at a large Fortune 500 company. You're developing good habits. And I think that Caterpillar on their resume will show that they've been developing good habits.
Yeah, because also I've read some articles where some four-year universities, mainly back east, are requiring their students to do internships after they graduate. Some students are paying for additional courses to do an internship. And the reason I mention that is because some employers get into a problem with the labor departments, because they're bringing students in or applicants to work for free, but they don't have anything really to show for it. So one way around it, I understood, was the employers were requiring the students to sign up for a course. For example, our college has these work experience courses, so they get something out of it. They get the academic credit. It shows on the transcript. They worked at the employer site, intern, and in return, they got so many units, 1, 2, 3, etc.
Yeah, for me, I would think, based on my own career experience, I think that's actually, if you can get in the door of an employer, I think it's best to get experience that you can put on your resume from that employer. So for example, for every internship I've ever had, I go running around just asking for projects and work to do. And then people there thought I was crazy, right? They're like, why does this person want to do all this? Because I wanted things to put on my resume. Like even my MBA internship at Adobe, I was just like running, because I know I had to give a final project at the end of that. And what I had done up to that point, I didn't think made for a good presentation. So I wanted to make sure, just run up and down the hallway saying, hey, you got something, you got something, you got something, until I got more and more experience. So, I mean, getting course credit is okay, but the employer doesn't want to see your course credit. They want to see the work that you've done within the context of employment, just because work is so different than school. Even setting up meetings is so different too. Expectations are so, accountability is so different. So while course credit is okay, I think it's better that if they can get in the door, and, you know, I don't want to, granted, employers, they do have a responsibility. They're busy also. I would say, put the onus on the student to say, make the most of this experience, because they can run around and ask for more work to volunteer for and work to do. They can go run around to other departments. Let's say they don't even like the internship they got. They can just probably ask other departments to say, what else is out there? Can I do some work for you or something? So being able to put the work you did at that company on your resume, I think that's very hard to beat. And I think if there's a way for students to get in the door that you were talking about, they have that Caterpillar and Samsung have that door open, get in the door and just start asking to do other people's work, because very few people say no to you asking to do their work.
And how do the employers actually get around the Labor Department ruling, which states the internship must be equivalent to an academic or vocational course? So some employers are really interested in partnering with the community colleges because the students sign up for the internship, and at the end of the 2-3 month term, they actually have academic credits.
Yes. So you bring up a great point, which is almost exactly like the Citi program I mentioned. And that's how they get around it, because you don't really have to worry about the Labor Department as much if it is a course type format, because they're like the Citi one, it's done actually during the semester as part of their course. So they're getting course credit for it. So a lot of that doesn't come into play. So if you want to help get around that, we can actually help you do that, because we already have the framework to do it, because we figured it all out already with Citi. So whatever employer that is, if you want, you can connect me up with them, and we can together have a conversation with whatever employer that is. Can you say what employer it is? Caterpillar or whatever?
No, these are just what a lot of local employers are interested in. Is they really don't know too much about internships until we bring it up to them, where the college will also cover the workman's comp insurance, and that usually piques their interest right there.
Oh yeah, free labor,
And,
right?
yeah, and then you tell them also, and at the end, this, they get academic credit, so it should meet some of the requirements of the Labor Department. Just
So
at the beginning, some of them are hesitant about hiring internships until you mention all the benefits.
yeah, what's interesting is we found that even with great programs, the challenge is not actually getting, it's actually finding the students, believe it or not. I found that really counterintuitive when we started doing this, is that's why we buried everything, not buried, but we integrated everything within the classroom. So all the local employers, we work with a lot of local employers too, and we can work with them on doing the same thing with Citi. Those exams with Citi, I helped craft. It just happens to be my previous work experience. So I wrote the exams, I went back with them, we reviewed it together, they like it, then we deployed it. So we can do the exact same thing with the local employers, and they'll have a pipeline of talent. And I think someone who is better versed with any sort of like workforce, like rules around all that, can explain to them around all those requirements. But I think you've already sorted that out. And most colleges have the exact process you're talking about. So I think the team that would get it together is me, you, whatever employers who want to participate, and someone who handles all of that workman's comp at the college, because this is a very common thing where colleges, they have grants or something that covers a lot of those overhead costs for employers. So it's really about building the pipeline for the students and just having a conversation with that employer. And I think if we do that together, we've just had a pattern of doing this with many employers now. So just get us all together, and happy to do it. I'd be surprised if it didn't work out.
Yeah, I'll forward also my coworker, Angie Ruiz, who's head of the internship programs. And we actually had a lot of success where students got hired by the city, county, private entities as well, just by going through the internships.
Absolutely. And, it's a great point, because a lot of employers, and this has gone on for a long time, is they like to hire their interns because there's nothing quite like someone working with you to get a feel for how they would be in your workplace. Are they a fit culturally with you? Are they do you like their level of accountability? Are they easy to work with? Are they reliable? Things like that you can only really discover through working with them, which is why so many employers typically recruit from their own internship pipeline. So yeah, absolutely. I'm not surprised that they like hiring from the interns at all. And I think by building that intern program, you can really help improve the placements for students when they graduate as well.
Yes, because I started to notice in these past couple of years, more and more students returning back after having a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something was missing.
Yeah.
Something was missing if they come back after they completed a bachelor's degree, and they're usually they're unemployed. So I was thinking probably the internship is the key right there to actually get them employed throughout there.
Yeah, I think so too. And this is becoming more and more common too, is because that's the nature of the bachelor's degree too, is they're not really learning. I think actually it's been the case for a long time. They're not really learning the skills employers want. And that's why you see in this day and age that so many people are graduating with a ton of student debt, yet are unemployed. And that's why you see the new administration trying to forgive student debt. But that's not really the root of the problem. I mean, yeah, you forgive student debt because you can't find a job, but eventually you're still going to have debt. It's just going to keep happening. So what you're saying is a nationwide issue. And I personally experienced this myself. My first job at UBS Investment Bank. They all treated us like we didn't know anything because we didn't, coming out of our bachelor degree programs. And before the first bathroom break, my friend looked at me and he said, did we just learn more before the first bathroom break than we did in the last 4 years of spending our parents' money for college? It's like, yeah, looks like it. And that actually speaks to a couple of things, is that you can learn very quickly what the employers are looking for, one, but two, not everybody's parents can pay for their college. So I think that's what's going on with the bachelor degree programs, where they're not getting a job. And that's why they're going back to upskill for that very reason. And that's why I really believe why they still can't, why they're going back. They look to you for getting their employments, getting their career started.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
That's terrific. Susie Nitzel has just posted in the chat that the next up is the panel discussion webinar, and we're like at about 2:27. So if you want to say some closing comments, we'll be ready to finish up.
Sure thing. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I really appreciate, and you had some really appreciate you joining today. And the questions were phenomenal. The connections were great too. It's a small world, as you can see, and we made immediate impact. And I always love immediate impacts for the students too. And just within a short conversation, your students could benefit already from a program that was out there. So communication is critical. And I just really thank everyone for their dedication to their students. It's hard sometimes it can get political, which I've encountered as well. And so I really appreciate the dedication of instructors and everything you do. And I appreciate a lot more when I had to do it. And there was a lot of things I took for granted. So I just want to, give my sincere appreciation to all the instructors out there. And also thank you for joining as well, and the great questions.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining in. I did post the survey again in the chat if you take a minute to do that. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you so much, Mr. Lin, for your information today.
My pleasure. Have a great conference, everybody.